This is the moment you've all been waiting for. Live with the best father and son team on the internet. It's time for Homie and the Dude.
What is up, everyone? This is Homie and the Dude, the father and son podcast, and we are delighted to be here today with Mark Garkusha. Mark is an actor, a voice actor, and the dungeon master for the Cast Die podcast. Mark Garkusha, how the fuck are you, brother?
Tom, buddy, I'm good, man. I'm delighted to be here. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's an honor to have you on, dude. We've from the moment when we met a couple of weeks ago, it was we were like, for sure we have to have Mark on and dissect some of your deep knowledge of things and all things Dungeons and Dragons and all that good stuff.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah. Yeah. From the first time we talked, I was like, man, these guys have a great vibe. And I've only become more firm in that opinion. So.
Oh, dude. Well, we're not only is it reciprocated but appreciated. Dude, obviously, you are an incredible dungeon master, and you're leading the tribe on with this incredible podcast you're doing. And it's something that we both aspire to be like in the future, and not only that, but appreciate and love what you're doing. So tell us, where did the love for Dungeons and Dragons start, dude? Tell us the Dungeons and Dragons origin story for you, dude.
Oh wow. Well, I mean, I'm turning 40 next week, so like I was there in what I mean. I'm sure a lot of nerds around my age think that they were in like the golden age of Dungeons and Dragons, but like, in the 80s, like the mid to late 80s, it was like such a such a part of the culture, such a part of the zeitgeist, and not in the way that it is now, not in the nerd renaissance that we have now. Like back then there was like the pamphlets of like one of the D's is for devil, and like
legit nerds, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like your dungeon master is gonna sell your soul and like all this stuff. And so like it was like there was like an air of like danger, and like you're not supposed to be doing this, which was like going around with all like the like heavy metal and like all like the satanic panic stuff that was happening back then. But yeah, I mean, and like I always loved like fantasy movies, and I remember like always looking at like the covers of books in the library, and the coolest covers were always like the sci-fi and then those fantasy covers, man. Those old school like Frank Frazetta and like Boris Vallejo, like those crazy, half naked dudes, half naked ladies. Like it was those were the coolest covers. And I don't know. Yeah, I was just always into it. But then my best friend growing up, his older brother was a dungeon master, and he ran a couple games for us a few times, and then then it was just like sold. We were like, yeah, Steve's into it. Oh, forget it. Like this is the coolest thing in the world.
Isn't there something about like you're the best friend's older brother, the mystique about that dude?
Oh man, and like yeah, this dude was like peak 1989 like cool older brother, like mullet, like Iron Maiden posters on the wall, drove a Camaro. It was like it was just like everything is like every box was checked.
The most acid bleached jeans you've ever seen.
100%. 100%.
Thanks for watching this episode. We really appreciate you supporting Homie and the Dude.
Please hit us with the Holy Trinity, like our Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and follow us on Instagram. Just search @Homie and the Dude. It all really helps.
Dude, so it's interesting you said it during the like satanic panic thing, because it was really funny like doing some research when I kind of reinvested myself in Dungeons and Dragons. I went in like kind of, I don't know, something that's important to me, and I think a lot of people agree with this, is like to really appreciate something, you either have to go to its origin or the stuff that is considered like almost canon or like core. You know, like for Star Wars, it's the original trilogy. If you don't watch the original trilogy, you haven't really watched Star Wars. Like you've seen the renditions that people have made since, but it's not Star Wars, you know. So
right.
Like I appreciate that. So I went back and I started doing some research, and I read about, you know, Gary Gygax and how it all started and the whole inception of D&D. And the best part that I enjoyed was reading about the whole like culture that people believed was around Dungeons and Dragons, and that these were satanic gatherings where they were plotting their demise of the world. And it's like, these are literally kids who are like, please God, let me have friends and like have fun with my buddies and like hang out and eat crisps and like, you know, goof around, you know. And I think it's really, really great. And what I also now love is that those kids in the 80s, like yourself, you know, who went through that stigma, now are the guys who are like the leaders of the next generation. And you guys are like, this is how it should be. And this, you know what I mean? I actually really appreciate, like, I got humbled on Facebook the other day by another dungeon master over opinion that I had. And it was beautiful. He serviced me in a way that it was unbelievable. I couldn't believe how much he burned me. And it was so beautiful to be humbled in that way. And I appreciate that there's so much vast knowledge amongst the older population in Dungeons and Dragons, actually, which is quite cool. And it's rare because not many things in life have the older core knowing like the most advanced, the best things, the most knowledge about it. It's like, you know, tennis players, the old ones, you know, don't have the crispest backhand anymore because it wasn't really a thing when they were doing it. You know, it's like,
but they got this sneaky slice drop, man. It kills you.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what you got to watch out for.
For sure. So yeah, no, that satanic stuff was some of the most interesting stuff I read about. I really, really found that interesting. It's super weird that, especially in America, they went really hard on it. The Christian culture really went hard on it.
From my perspective, so I'm a little bit older. I'm probably a lot older than you, but yeah, I think it was a combination of a few things. So there was almost like if you were in that group, in that sort of subculture, you didn't shy away in how you dressed. So you did dress to sort of state your stance that you are an outsider, right? And there could have been, you know, it could be trends of black and like whatever, you know, some sort of style of your hair that would indicate that you are, you know, you're not in the mainstream. But also there was some weird shit going on, just like, you know, in the pop culture of finding that, and like we find other things, whether currently with other parts of the population that probably are unfairly judged, but it felt like that was definitely something that was going on at that time as well. It was kind of weird because totally inaccurate.
Yeah. Like I feel like anybody who's ever like played a game of Dungeons and Dragons, like if you went there expecting a satanic ritual, you will be sorely disappointed.
It's either you're sorely disappointed or you come away going, you know what, I came for one thing and I got something so much better. Like, how was that better than what I was hoping for today?
No blood on my clothes.
Exactly.
I have to take my goat home, though.
Yeah, exactly. What am I gonna do with this goat now? No, it's so crazy to me. And like you were saying, Tom, there was like all that, you know, that was like part of the culture too. There was always, you know, like I just watched that Sons of Sam documentary on Netflix, and they go into a lot of that stuff. But there was like all this, you know, crazy, and that's why they called it the Satanic Panic. It was like this whole thing going on, and you know. But I feel like, especially in the United States, there's always something. Like it was the Satanic Panic, and then it was like, guys, forget about Satan. It's fucking rap music. It's rap music. Rap music is what's, you know, getting everybody. Which is, and then it was video games. You know, so it's like there's always like, it's like instead of addressing actual issues, they always want to just like have a scapegoat. Exactly.
Find a scapegoat to just toss it onto it and be like, that's that. Like for me, I was in the generation that had the video game. Like that's the one for me. And it was like, I remember Call of Duty being like really taboo in certain, like I remember our friend in Spain would literally come to my house because Tom and Tracy, at this point when I got my first console, I'd already watched like Kill Bill and like
Yeah.
ridiculous like gory movies, and they were like,
how old were you? You were like,
I was like 10, 11. You guys were like, how much worse is a game going to be than like Quentin Tarantino? Like, it can't get much worse than that. So, like, I was playing shooters and Call of Duty, and my friends would come over because they couldn't at their house to come hang out and play at my house and play some games and stuff. And I like, it's weird that pressure comes from society in certain ways, and it's weird when you're in that subculture as well, because then not only are you viewed by like older people, the older generation, or even the group that's persecuting you, but also sometimes your peers start drifting because of what's being fed into their ears and whatnot, and it becomes a weird one to engage in. But yeah,
absolutely,
it can affect young people for sure.
So, yeah, let me ask you this, dude. Sorry, were you gonna add to that? No, I'm just gonna, because you have a pretty good perspective, because you played back then. Playing now, you've seen what's happening now and how it is, you know, as you mentioned, it's part of the zeitgeist is for real, right? It is happening. What's your take on that? Like, are you kind of slightly bitter because you were there at the beginning? Or are you wide? I mean, to one extent, we're kind of trying to ride that wave as well. The timing to be pretty right.
Yeah. No, you know, I'm not a gatekeeper. Like, I am like, let's all play, let's all do it together. Like, I my only like instance of gatekeeping, nerd gatekeeping, was in the like early 2000s when like Harry Potter came out and everybody was like, oh, we love Harry Potter so much. And I was like, you posers, you guys are such posers. Like, you know, you made fun of me when I was reading Lord of the Rings, and now you want to read Harry Potter, and it's stupid. What a dumb thing. You know, because I hadn't read it. I was like, you guys suck. And this was when I was in college. And then I read, you know, the first book, and I was like, oh my God, this is really good. And I was like, not going to parties. Mark, are you coming out? I'd be like, no, I'm coming up on a really serious Quidditch game here, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and finish Prisoner of Azkaban here. So yeah, after that, I was like, okay, yeah, gatekeeping is stupid. I'm not gonna do it anymore. And like that kind of made me think about it, Bodhi, when you said that that somebody like serviced you. And it's like, I think that there is that thing in the, especially in the TTRPG community, because a lot of us were, you know, nerds, or a lot of us still are nerds, but a lot of us like got picked on. A lot of us like went through all that shit. And now it's like, oh, now everybody's doing it. So I think there is like some pushback from some people, like, you know, you have to go through what I went through, which is stupid. No, like, don't do, like, it's the same thing where like, you know, whenever like talking about like debt forgiveness happens here in the US, and people are like, I had to pay to go to school, so everyone else should too. It's like, dude, why? Why? Like,
like why would you want the same pain just because you experience it? Doesn't like it's not a fruitful train of thought, but
it's from a position of bitterness and just unhappiness in yourself that you want to have some other people down into the mud with you.
Exactly. And it's like, I went through it, so you have to. I'm like, no, you don't.
And do you know what I can say, dude, in terms of you gatekeeping, like the one thing like that I appreciate is not that, like, I wouldn't say I'm super new to the D&D community. I said, I've been playing since I was maybe 13, 14. I've just had a minimal hiatus in the middle. Sure. And like, I guess for me, dude, the thing was when we met and we then have started collaborating and whatnot, your openness with me to share, you know, your methods, your thoughts, your you know, appreciate my input and collaboration. And the one thing, you know, I said, I literally spoke to my mother today, and she's genuinely a world-class chef, like unbelievable chef. And I said, you know, it's great. One of the craziest things is I say to Mark, you know, you're teaching me so much, and you always go to me, well, you teach me stuff too, dude. And I was like, and I said, you know, to me that means so much. And she was like, but so she's speaking as a master in what she does, and you know, over 30, 40 years of experience now within chefing. And she's like, you know, for us people who are going to forget more than you will learn at this point in your life, we still appreciate the new innovative ideas that the newbies bring in and change and think about and whatnot and bring to the table. So, dude, like, to say that you're not a gatekeeper is not even close. You're actually a gate opener. You're the gate.
Yeah.
You're the guy who's ushering people in. Like, get in the gate before it closes, everyone. Like, let's go. And that, dude, to me, like, means more than anything on this planet. Like, I appreciate the time that we interact and you help me and we work together so much, because it really does develop my game so much. And again, like you said, I come away feeling great when you go, hey, man, I learned something from you today. And whether you're doing that to make me feel good or not, it is making me feel good.
No, that is a happy side effect, man. Like, no, it's every time we talk, like I'm like we're discussing, we're talking. It's a collaboration, and I feel like that's always the case in any kind of like teacher. I'm not saying that we have a teacher student, but like even in like a teacher and student relationship, the teacher's learning too. Like, you're never not learning. And I think like first, and also let me backtrack a little bit there. Like, thanks, man. Thank you. Like that was like, that really meant a lot for you to say that. But yeah, it's like, I think it's one of those things where it's like, if you show up to school and the teacher's like, wow, thanks guys, like I really learned a lot today, then the kids are going to be like, wait a minute, why are we listening to you? But like, if you can have that like back and forth and just like be like cool and chill about it, like, that's the best. That's the best way to do it, I think.
And like, I'm not saying it because I want to suck your dick or anything. I'm saying it because, I just appreciate who you are, and your level of creativity is on a pedestal that I really appreciate, dude. Like Tom listened to some of the podcast, and literally the first thing he said to me, he goes, damn, Mark can write.
Yeah.
He walked in and went,
Man.
damn, Mark can write. And,
Wow.
dude, like we really, really just appreciate, your talent and whatnot. And I think, like, dude, in terms of you saying, like, it's not a teacher, dude, when we release our setting, whatever our big release is for Homie and the Dude, you will be credited as one of my mentors, dude, as a DM. Like, dude, it's what it is, dude. You've been part of my growth journey. And I think it were like, dude, I don't care how you feel about it. You're getting some words in a book somewhere.
Oh,
and
wow, that's
it's just how it is, dude. And we appreciate, just like Tom has mentored me through life and stuff and helped me grow up and to be a young man, and I've helped him out back and helped him loosen up and not be it's like it's tightly wound. And so it's, yeah, dude, I just really appreciate it. All the people that have helped me along the way will get a mention for sure, and you a special one for what you've done. But yeah, of course, dude. Go on, Tom.
Thank you.
Yeah, dude. So let's I mean, to Bodhi's point, I wanted to just get into the cast die and really start unlocking, kind of how the whole thing
behind the
started.
scenes.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
wow.
we're happy to share our
BTS.
process as well and what we're trying
Yeah.
to do. But it'd be cool for anyone that's, that's sort of in a similar place, that's thinking about getting into the game, that's in the game in a different part of the track. It'd be cool just to sort of share our experiences. So I think the first thing is, like with what Bodhi said, dude, I really, really, like, I know writing, I've read my share and I've written my share, and you have a high level of competency in putting words
in order.
Well, yeah, exactly. So talk about a little bit about that. Like, where's that coming
from? I would say, like, I mean, I've always loved telling stories. I've always loved writing. Since I was a little kid. And so, but then on top of that, it's like, it's something that it's writing a subject that I love, it's like fantasy, it's adventure. It's like a cool story. And, I feel like I'm like, once I have like the bones of a story, it's really easy for me to like hang the meat on it. That's a weird analogy, but like once like the path is there, it's so easy to like fill it in, I feel like, for me. And so the beauty of TTRPGs and D&D is like, that it's collaborative storytelling. So like, I don't have to create the entire skeleton so that it's like a working skeleton and then like start putting the muscles on it. I can, I'm like, okay, here's the spine. And then like, then the players come in and like stick the ribs on it, and so it's like, it makes it so much easier to just kind of like, build off of what they bring. So yeah, I think that like the beauty to me is the collaboration.
Nice.
That's
I'm
awesome.
just gonna let me build on your analogy, because
Beautiful way to put it.
yeah, what I really admired by, and you're right, you know, the collaboration, I guess, starts once the, you know, sort of the exposition, the setting the
Mhm.
context, all of that, you know, gets put in place, and now we start working together and building out, you know, the world. But your exposition, your introduction, your contextualization, all of that, dude, if we're going to continue the analogy, like, you did not just do the spine, you have some, you know, like, you got some important parts of like cartilage in between the ribs and, you know, the main arteries, and there's some finishing touches on your descriptives that are really nice, and
Thank you.
yeah, like quality writing. So I very much admired that.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and do you know what I'll say off of what you said about the collaboration thing? I think something that Tom instantly learned when he dungeon mastered for the first time a couple of months ago, and what I have been working towards, and it's my main point of like contention within my dungeon master style, and what I'm working towards is that real joint collaborative process of working with your team to build things. And it was so funny. I was talking to our artist who makes the art for our NPCs and our magic items and stuff, and he's a long time dungeon master. You know,
Oh, wow.
he's been doing it like very long time, just like yourself, Mark. And he's an amazing guy who's happy to like help me and stuff. And he basically was talking to me, and you know, one of the first things he said, we talked about the art that he was going to do first, and he was like, "I've got some advice for you as a dungeon master." He was like, "We're just going to leave you with some stuff before you go, because I've been thinking about it," kind of thing. And I was like, "Okay, cool." And he talked about like some world building with your players. So like asking your players, you know, "Oh, what do you see over there? Like, describe that person to me, you know, what so on and so forth." And then the other thing that he did was he showed me his notes. And as opposed to like you and myself, Mark, you write, I think, a little bit less than I do at this point, and he writes way less than both of us have ever even. Like, he showed me basically what was like an A5 piece of paper, and he was like,
Wow.
"Yeah, this is 2 sessions worth of planning." I was like,
Yeah.
"No, it's not. You're crazy. Don't lie to me. Like, that's not 2 sessions." And
Yeah.
what I did come away from that, though, is obviously, you know, I come away going, I take everything with a pinch of salt, because everyone does things differently, and I need to look at the bigger picture of what I get given from everyone and adjust to that, basically. So I look at, you know, the preparation you showed me and how much you write, how much I do, what he's doing, and somewhere in the middle, I'm formulating where I'm going to write and how much
Sure.
I'm going to write. But what it really opened up for me was, I was like, wow, this guy is he is collaborating with his players on a level that I fully do not understand at this point. The fact that he has such little detail, and that he has like almost like the encounter and like maybe an NPC, and like that's it, almost, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then everything else he's building with his players, and it's very collaborative. I was like, wow, that's incredible. And it makes me go, that is definitely a place of contention for me, is letting go of like a plot that I have in my mind and being like, "Oh, there's this beautiful idea,"
Yeah.
and you guys have gone over to the left, and
Yeah.
okay. So
Yeah.
here we are at the left, and I'm gonna have to work with this, you know. And so I think I need to work on letting go and allowing you guys to do more of that. And I'm definitely going to be working to do that this next session and going forward in the future as well. But no, I appreciate you saying that, because yeah, I like it. It's something, the collaboration part is something that I'm now willing to look within myself and appreciate as a dungeon master now as well, I think. And for you, it was we had a whole, like, Tom was going to kill off a character that had joined the group, and it's kind of like had like a master servant relationship with one of the PCs, and was also really good friends with one of the other ones. So Tom was going to kill him off. He killed him off, and they somehow avoided everything that we wanted them to go through. They avoided all of it, killed him off, and they were just like, "Right, let's burn his body. And does he have anything on him? No, right, let's go. Let's get out of here." And it was like,
yeah.
Oh, dude, it was so underwhelming. It was so heartbreaking, because in my mind, you know how when you're acting and you're on stage and that's the speech, right? That's the one that brings the house up,
Right.
and it you know, brings tears to people's eyes, and it you know, sort of it launches the standing ovation. That's what it was, and it was so like less than that. It was so such an afterthought that I was kind of crushed by it, and really, like, I started defending the little dude that was basically going to get scorched because they were like, yeah, we're just going to leave him. Does he have anything? You know, does he have anything we can take before we just abandon him? But that's a perfect example to your point, dude.
Yeah,
like,
man.
Yeah, that collaboration is, and it's where the golden nuggets of Dungeons and Dragons really comes from, is working together to come up with creative solutions where you do work your way around all the problems that a dungeon master has put forward for you, or you do stupid things because it's within your character and you pick up a rock 2 times and throw it against a wall because that's, you know, something you're, whatever it is, you know. And I think that's where the beauty of D&D comes from, is that collaboration, the working together, the describing things together. And like you said, building a world together is something that is, I think, the most beautiful part of it. And I think what I love about what you're doing and like what Critical Role have done is that the world that you have built, like, dude, I would love to play in the world that you have built. Like, I would love to spend an afternoon as a character in your world, you know, like, and this is like what I think is even more the extension of Dungeons and Dragons, is watching it is amazing, hearing it and playing it is great, but then being able to access other people's creativity. And that's like one of the things I really love about the community is the sharing part of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Tom, that like I watched the video about the like finding your DM style. I watched your finding your DM style video, which was great. And Tom, you kind of mentioned something along those lines during that, that you're looking for those big epic moments, and like absolutely, like we all, like I feel like we all want those moments. And the same thing happens to me where I'm like, oh, here comes this huge thing, guys. Oh man. and then everyone's just kind of like, okay. So yeah, I said I wanted to like pick up some daggers before we left. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like I tried to build out this huge moment. But then you'll have these other things where like that are completely out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Where it's like, then it like people are crying, and like we have in the episode coming out on Monday, like minor spoiler, there's a scene where Prime, our Goliath custom Beastborn class, he goes hunting, and he like, but he doesn't want to like in this moment he doesn't want to like go hunting, and he's kind of like, he can like talk to animals, so he finds this wounded animal and like kind of like eases it into the next life. And like this was like completely, we hadn't discussed it, you know, I mean, it's a, you know, improv role-playing game, we hadn't, and but like we went into this moment, like we role played out this moment of him like, you know, like comforting and then like killing a wounded deer. And like it was this like hugely emotional like interchange. Like I had to be like, okay, you know. Whereas like I've had, you know, not on the show, but like in other games where I've like, you know, had like a character die, or like a really, you know, like important NPC die, and there's not like that level of like real, you know, emotional investment, but like just because like it was there and it was like just like in the moment, and like
do you know what, dude, I think that's and I like, right, I'm not claiming to be a Stanislavski I'm not an aficionado of acting. I don't claim to be it, so, but what is the thing is, when you get good acting, it's when someone is so in character that they believe the truth that they are delivering, and it's so real for them that they feel it and that it's in that moment. And dude, I had a same moment when in our first session, one of our characters fell. So our world is set in floating islands, and one of our characters fell out the bottom of the island, and basically a person on top of the island, the elder of the island, saw him fall out the bottom of the island and saw him like puff into the clouds below, and sacrificed himself. He actually jumps off of the island and like dive bombs down to him and gives him something as like, this will give this to the All-Father and he'll restore you, basically, kind of thing.
Wow.
And sacrifice himself. So after they go through this dungeon and they come back and they get to the top of the island, and the young girl whose father sacrificed himself to save our friend, to save one of the PCs, talks to him, and that was really emotional. But then I actually played a little extra moment where the elder spoke to our PC from like the afterlife, and dude, I was choking up to it. Like I'm genuinely there, like struggling to get through this improvised monologue that I didn't even plan. And yeah, you come away from it just being like, why was that emotion? Like I have no relation to something that's in my head. Am I crazy? Yeah,
just a little bit.
Yeah, just I think you've got to be to fully envelop yourself in acting. But yeah, dude, it was those moments are treasurable, and I love, like you said, it's sometimes the smallest moment that has such little significance to the plot that adds so much. And I'm not sure if you would agree with this, but there's sometimes, for me, for example, in movies and stuff, when I watch, where a shot will happen and I'll be like, that did more for me than the last 20 minutes of bullshit dialogue that I've had to listen to, or, you know, something like that moment, or that lighting that they did there, or that like music that they added to that scene, that soundtracking there was good. Like,
or the opposite, where it's like, there is a moment, you know, it's going to develop. It just needs a little bit more time to breathe, and then they cut to something else. You know, like I know action is cool, and I love the action, and that's great. Right. It's a big part of this movie, but dude, I want some humanity as well. And that's you know, I think in the end, there are places for everything. But for me personally, I love those moments of whether it's pure creativity, pure humanity, which has to do with, you know, happiness, funniness, sadness, all those things. Yeah. And to your point, dude, that cannot be forced. It can't be forced, you know. No.
And it's why things like, you know, Leonardo DiCaprio in Django Unchained smashing the table and cutting his hand gets left in the movie. Why, you know, Viggo Mortensen kicking a helmet in Lord of the Rings and breaking his toe and collapsing like you know, that's why that shit gets left in, is because it gives something. Like when people improvise and do that, and they have like, and that's happened many. There's the classic Fresh Prince of Bel-Air moment between Will Smith and the dad, and that's a classic one. Yeah. And like, dude, that's what it's all about. That's what all of this acting is. That's why we do Dungeons and Dragons. And it is genuinely. It's so funny you say like you said, you know, the moment someone sits down at a Dungeons and Dragons table, they're like, this is a satanic ritual. What, like this is. And but the other thing you get is, when you sit down at Dungeons and Dragons table, it hooks you because of the realness that comes with it. Even though you're playing in a fantasy world with races that don't exist and spells and all that, and you know, all this wildness, it's the realness that really draws people in, and like allowing them to play something true and wrong sometimes, and be bad, or like make a mistake, you know, or even be the hero for a moment and save someone's life. You know, all of that is why we come back. Sure. Over and over again. And those reactions for us as dungeon masters are, dude, there's no better serotonin boost than seeing your player like roll a natural 20, killing a boss that they, like, the rest of the team is down, and this is the last chance, and they roll that nat 20 and wipe them out, and they're like, yes, and the whole table's like, you know, like, it's truly incredible.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people like don't realize that that like, yeah, there are those dungeon masters out there who are like, oh, you know, it's me versus the players, and like I'm gonna ooh, and you know, I joke about that all the time, but like, you know, like, someone's gonna die today, you know, but like it is like, we are, you know, I think most dungeon masters are rooting for the players so much, you know, like it's. And when, like you say, when they roll that nat 20, when they not like survive in a moment where you think like it's going to be touch or go, or they do something, you know, heroic or cool, or, you know, just like really in their character, it's like, it's an incredible moment, like as the guy who's running the game, and as like a person, you know, it's so much fun. It's such a beautiful, like, shared, like, experience with so many fantastic opportunities for exploration and catharsis, and it's the best game out there, I think, man. Like, everybody should play it
for real, dude. It's not just the best game out there, dude. Like we've
Best storytelling device.
oh, dude,
Yeah.
it is the best. Like you compare Dungeons and Dragons to movies, there is no comparison. Like movies, they just cannot compete. It's not even a fair fight.
Yeah.
It's not even close to a fair. It's so funny how unfair. And this is hilarious. Like if you said that to like one of the great Spielberg or something, he would like fall off his chair laughing. But the moment he played it, he would be like, "Oh shit!"
This is
He'd be like, "I've been in the wrong industry my whole life."
Yeah.
Like, "Oh my god!" But it's one of those things, dude, where it can, like you said, the catharsis is something like. There's so many emotions that come with it, and those people that you play with are so important, and that group become family, and you bond in a way that is different. And that leads me on to a perfect question of, dude, how did you choose your group? Because I know you guys didn't all know each other, and how did this group come together for the Cast Eye? How did you call your event? How did you assemble your Avengers, bro?
So, well, it was multi-layered / faceted. The way the podcast came into being was with me and Ryan, or with Ryan and I, Ryan Andes, Feltian on the show. We used to see each other like once a week before the pandemic, because like we would see each other at like auditions all the time. You know, you see like the same 10 guys at every audition, you know, and like just a bunch of goofballs. You know, it's always funny when you walk into like a studio and you're like, let me see where, like, oh, there are the on-camera actors, and oh, yep, there's the VO guys. Like, okay, it's an easy thing to oh yeah, super done up and on point, and then like unshaved guys in sweater or in hoodies. Like, okay, great, that's where I'm going. But we would see each other all the time. We would like, you know, like get to hang out and catch up. So then, you know, during the pandemic, like we hadn't seen each other in a long time, and he sent me a message. He was like, "Hey man, you know," it was like right when like outdoor dining was happening again. He's like, "Hey, like let's, you know, we've both been, you know, isolated. We've both been, you know, being careful. Like let's go grab a drink." And we did, and I was wearing this hat that I have that has like the Patagonia type label, but instead of a regular bear, it's an owl bear.
Oh,
and
awesome.
yeah, it's a pretty sick hat. I got it off Etsy. I can't remember the guy's name, but I'll find it and send it to you guys. He was like, "Is that an owl bear? How the fuck do you know what an owl bear is?"
Only someone's playing Dungeons and Dragons can actually have that in response.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, so then we started talking about that, and they were like, you know, dude, like, you know, we got a lot of free time. We have like audio equipment. Like we should do a D&D podcast. And then we started kicking the idea around, and then I went to like people who I had played with, you know, Dom. I've been playing with Dom for a few years. I've been playing with Jordan for a few years. Dwayne has been playing with us. And then Battles and I went to college together, and she was one of the Harry Potter nerds at the time that I was like, but you know, my brief foray into gatekeeping, and we kind of like, Ryan and I were like, let's play a game. Like we're not going to tell anybody that like we want to do a podcast. We don't want people to like feel like it's an audition, but it is. And we played one game, and I think like afterwards, like, you know, I called Ryan and I was like, I think we got it, man. I think auditions are over. I think we just did it. Cause it is like, you know, if any of my cast is watching this, I stop now, because I'm going to say nice things about you. They are like just a really, really great group. They're a really like cohesive, like gracious group, which is like, it's so important. And I like some of the best acting advice, like maybe the second best piece of acting advice I ever got is like, just make your scene partner look good.
Yeah.
Like make the other person look good. and then you will look good, as a happy side effect. And they are really good at that. Like they are really good at that, which makes my job so much easier.
Write that down. Write that down. Write that down.
So let me get into that a little bit more. You had a couple of people that you played with, and battles you went to college with, and she was sort of a personality type that you thought might fit in to some degree.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit more. What were some of the variables that you were looking for when you were putting together the casting call initially? What was the description that you were trying to fill out from the criteria? Yeah, what was the criteria that you were looking for?
I mean, it's hard to say. Like, I feel like, we were like, I'm looking for a Ryan, I'm looking for a Jordan, I'm looking for a Battles and a Dwayne. I think there wasn't like a form or anything, but like I'd worked with Dwayne for years and years and years. We were in a sketch comedy group together, so like I knew that like Dwayne had that like incredible like openness and graciousness. And like he had, before we started the podcast, he had played in like 2 or 3 sessions, not campaigns, like sessions. So, but like I was like, I know that Dwayne is a incredible actor, and like he's gonna be great. I think actually the podcast, or our secret audition, was the first time Ryan and I had ever played together. But I just had a feeling that like that we were gonna get along. And Dom and Jordan I had been playing with for a good long time. So I knew that they were a lot of fun. But yeah, it was just kind of like we just got lucky in a lot of ways.
Dude, that's like, it's weird. Sometimes that gut feeling is all that you need. Sometimes that you're like, wow, if you knew the rules, you would be unbelievable. Like if we could just get you to read a couple of the books, you are like, wow, perfect. And you know what's hilarious? My girlfriend is actually one of those people. So she is like not creative in any way, shape, or form, except for when it comes to problem solving. She is the greatest problem solver I've ever met in my life. And on top of that, she has the most logical brain ever and the strongest moral code. So I was just like, I was like, you might not find, like, the role play thing is maybe not your forte, but numbers are your forte. Being a strong moral compass for multiple people is your forte. Planning and strategizing is your forte. I was like, you're made to be the battle strategist of this group. I was like, you're made to be the one that goes, guys, we don't have to just fight in. Should we just talk to someone? Like, you know what I mean? Like a person who like is like, guys, wait a second. Like you're getting too excited. Like, and so it was one of those things where I instantly, when we started playing, I was like, oh, she's going to be great. Like she will fit in and she'll add something to our group that we don't have yet. And like, funnily enough, she's joining our session tomorrow. And hopefully it will be a really good one, and she'll get along with the game and the session as a whole.
I think.
Sorry, my fiance just had to come in and grab her.
It's all good. Don't stress it off.
Hi there.
I can't leave the house without it.
Yeah. Of course not. Yeah.
Dude, was that recent?
Oh, no, it's been a while. We were supposed to get married in November. All right. So, but due to the global pandemic, we had to postpone. But yeah, man, having a problem solver like that in your group is such an incredible gift for a dungeon master, because it means you don't have to, you can just put a problem out without having the solution to it in your mind. You can think, I have no idea how you're supposed to get out of this situation. Let me just drop it on you. And then when they figure it out, be like, yep, that was the way to do it.
Exactly. Exactly. It's the old bait and switch. I wanted I want to ask you a question that might be a little bit taboo, but I think it's super important to ask it because I'm just interested. Critical Role get criticized massively for being an all-white, like nerdy people podcast. Now, obviously, you guys are a vocal. You're just an audio track, but there's images of the cast online, and obviously, you're a diverse cast of gender and race.
Yeah.
How important was that for you during the selection process with the stigma that is going on for people like Critical Role and other big D&D groups out there?
That's another thing that we just kind of like got lucky with, you know, like I mean, it is important. And, you know, I do believe that especially in something where you're creating a product and where you're creating a performance, it is absolutely important to have a diverse cast with, you know, and diverse voices. We got lucky in that, like, the people that we wanted to play with, like, fit that description.
Of course.
So yeah.
It's not, maybe not one that you were looking for, but one that you were happy to fall into, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, like, had we not been lucky in that, if we had, you know, like, who can we get on this show, and it was like white dude, then we would have been like, all right, then, you know, maybe we should do some work on this. Like, we should keep this list, keep working on this list a little bit.
Yeah, I agree
but
with that.
yeah, that wasn't an issue because, you know, the first people we wanted to work with, we were better in that regard.
Yeah, of course.
So, dude, you're now something like 20 episodes in. This has now moved from a, you know, sort of a let's get together hobby type thing and let's record it into a different phase. But before you got to that phase, and we're considering these types of things too, and we're considering our streaming group, did you have any kind of contracting or any kind of commitment conversation or anything at all to say, like, guys, look, are we going to do this? Because if we are, these are the things that are important to us.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, that was kind of built into, like, our session 0, you know, when we were saying, like, all right, let's do a podcast. We kind of, you know, we went through all, like, the regular session 0 stuff, and then we kind of had the addendum of, like, listen, this is going to be a performance, and, like, you know, with the exception of Dom, like, we're all actors, we're all performers, we all, like, and, you know, he's a writer, he's an artsy type too, so he gets it, but, like, we all like, know what it is, the difference between, you know, having fun or, you know, whatever, and making an actual performance. And so that was kind of part of it. Like, listen, guys, like, you know, we got to be on time, we got to, like, you know, we have to not have the constant bane of the D&D group of, like, oh, I can't make it tonight.
Yeah.
You know, we have to treat this like a performance and like a job. And luckily, since a lot of us are actors, we are used to treating something you're not getting paid for as a job, you know? So we have that going for us too.
Fit right in there just nicely.
Yeah.
Oh, don't, dude. That's you. It is a certain. That's something that, you know, I think I really value in, and you can feel it with you guys. You work for each other. Like, it's weird and you can feel it with Critical Role. You can feel it with Dimension 20. I mean, you can feel it with Corridor Digital, who don't even do, like, or they do some Dungeons & Dragons, but they do, like, VFX stuff, and you look at their team.
Yeah.
It's this working for each other mentality of, like, cool, yeah, I'm gonna go away and I'm gonna learn my spells and I'm gonna go over what we did last session before this next session so that I'm a little bit more prepared. And, you know, it's all of that commitment stuff that really does enhance the whole gameplay experience. And it's why, you know, people like Critical Role, Acquisitions Inc., you know, you guys are successful in what you do because the people who are doing it care about it. They value it. They know it's not like it's, and I know you're like, treat it like a job, but it's weird. It's not a job in the sense of anyone listening who is working a 9-to-5 job that they hate is sat there going, right, oh, a job. Like, Tom and I have been doing this podcast for nearly a year, and we have made probably around, let's be real, if we don't include the freelancing work I did, let's actually be real, probably around £200 ish at this point. And that's after a year of hard work, and we're still doing this, we're still enjoying it, and we're still pushing. And it's because this job is not a standard job, even though it is same amount of work time. We're actually putting in more hours than I would put into like a standard job. But the love and the passion is what drives it, and the want for me to be better as a dungeon master, as a podcaster, as an editor, as a this and that, so that I can be better for Tom, and Tom wanting to make it so that when I have a thumbnail idea, he's got it on Photoshop or Figma or whatever we're using, and he's got the tool. You know, we want to be able to do. Obviously, we'd like to pay someone to do it. That'd be fucking nice. But you know, but you know, at the end of the day, it's something that we love, and you know, we really do it for the passion. And I think, you know, that's what you're talking about, is that it's treating a job with passion that you love, and that you want to just keep coming back to. For some, you're just like, God, I just need to be back there. And I think, yeah, dude, I think that's a big part of finding that group. And I think it's something that we've talked about a few times in terms of finding our lot as well.
We hadn't, you know, it's been sort of a late stage consideration of that this is a performance, because that is not, you know, the home group, the family group, the friend group doesn't have that consideration, right? You can have someone that's really good at Dungeons and Dragons, and they're really good at just the rules and all that stuff, and performance actually gets them so far to their comfort zone that they're not even enjoying it anymore. So they probably in some ways would be great, and in other ways would be a disaster for the type of thing that we're trying to do. The irony here is that I also think there's a bit of pushback for performance D&D, right? And so although the alternative is, if you were to watch just like I think in our heads, we think, oh, the family group would be great to watch. Dude. In some ways, maybe, but in some ways, like, there is a reason why some groups are getting the views and the followings that they have. And a large part of that is the performance. And so the fact that was a leading variable for you is important for us to consider as well when we consider putting our group together.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah, that is something that, like, as we were getting started, that we had to like take into consideration, because there is, like you were saying, Tom, there is a lot of stuff that, you know, is fun at the table and, like, you know, cool to do at the table, but, like, you know, as far as audio drama goes, not really engaging. You know, like, so much of a time at a D&D table is spent like, all right, what should we, like, how should we, like, okay, all right, so, you know, there's a door over here and a door over there, and, like, here's what I think we should go around to that door. I'm like, well, wait a minute, because if we go to that door, then we're gonna, like, and, you know, when you're sitting in there with your buddies, like, you know, drinking a couple beers, eating some crisps, and
it's fine.
It's fine, like, but if you're listening to a podcast and, you know, you're listening to the minute 35 of the discussion of which door to go into, it's like, all right, you know, I would rather not listen to anything. You know?
Dude.
So
two questions that kind of like interlock with each other, because you just mentioned there, you know, that there's the umming, the eyeing and whatnot. And also you mentioned that because you guys are an audio podcast, you know, a lot of the like drama of, like, you know, sometimes someone being like, and I do this. And you're this action can't be seen, you know? So how much are you guys changing your style so that you are very much verbally getting that across? And also, how much are you editing in post of that? Like, I think it's door left, and so I think it's door. How much of that are you pulling out in post?
At first, a lot. At first we would record for like 3 hours, and I would get, you know, an hour and 15 minutes out of it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Because, you know, there was a lot of, you know, nonsense happening too. And then as we were going, there would be like, we had to get to a point where like, cause we always book 3 hours. We're always like, we're going to go 3 hours. We're going to hang out I've got you guys from 7 to 10, you know? And, but then like, as we were going, I started like around like episode, I don't know, 7 or 8. I was editing it and I was like, oh no, like I'm taking out a lot of stuff here and I'm at like an hour and 45 minutes. Like, so we had to start kind of like, you know, saying like, we're only like, I started like saying, and we'll see you next week, an hour and 40 minutes like into our record, and people are like, whoa, what's going on? I'm like, yeah, we are getting better at having like just, you know, the meat of this thing. Nice. But yeah. One thing we did, one quick peek behind the curtain, we instituted a timeout thing. So, which I think is great, because it well, first of all, so the timeout thing is, you know, we'll be doing like, okay, we're gonna do this. What's going on? And then someone will just go, you know, timeout, and we'll have like an out of character, out of performance discussion of like, wait, what's going on? You know?
Yeah.
Because like, yeah, and it gives us a chance to kind of like, instead of you know trying to discuss it in performance and like figure it out, we can kind of be like, all right, so I think this and this, okay, I think this and this, and then like time back in, and then we kind of like just you know abbreviate that out of character discussion into a quick thing. So
what do you think the gives you timestamps as well, for sure, while you're editing, you can be like, cool, time out, cut, time back in, cut, you know, pull that out, done.
So you have a pretty unique perspective on.
I like that.
Yeah,
like that, dude. That's can you actually write that? No. I'm like being serious. Can you actually write that down? That's fucking genius.
So what's your perspective on the audiovisual teams out there? That it looks like there's not much editing going on, but I guess there is. Like I'm not really being super inspective on where the cuts are. I thought that it was pretty long run and there aren't many cuts, but maybe there are.
So I personally think teams like Critical Role, if you look at them, because they typically do a live stream where they sit in front of an audience and they live stream, I do not think they're cutting anything. I think people like Dimension 20, however, who have a 2-hour stream where it is a lot of, like you said, just meat all the time. I don't imagine I imagine they're chopping a lot more up than, for example, someone like Critical Role would be my guess.
Yeah. What do you think, Mark?
So I think it is very much like what Bodhi's saying. Like when you have an audience,
well, there's nowhere to hide.
Exactly, there's nowhere to hide. But also, like, the air is never dead when there's an audience. You know, so like what they can kind of get away with on Critical Role of like having like air, it's filled by the audience, you know. But like if you're listening to a podcast where there's no like visual and there's no like, you know, audience energy, you can't get away with that. You can't have like, you know, a moment of meaningful eye contact between two characters, you know? It just doesn't work. So we have to chop it out. And which is why, like, you know, let me preface this by saying Critical Role is amazing. Those guys are incredible. But like, I can't listen to it as a podcast, you know, like, because it's not made to be a podcast, you know, it's made to be a stream. It's made to be watched, like, you know, ideally consumed live, you know, and so it's just not set up to be a podcast, which is like, it's the same thing. It's the difference between like seeing theater in the theater and then watching like a
movie version, like watching Hamilton on Disney Plus.
Exactly.
Yeah, I totally feel you. Do you know what's interesting? You mentioned about like how your Critical Role is meant to be digested in a certain way, and you know, you guys are doing this podcast. Is there a next step for the Cast Die where you guys do incorporate like whether it be a like recording of you guys as a video, or some sort of like animated anything on top of it? Or is there anything that you guys have considered in that way? Or are you thinking, nah, we're going to just keep it as a podcast because it is at the core of it a very minimal thing that, you know, there's not a whole lot of worrying about audio, video, editing both of those, rendering, releasing them to platforms that can hold, you know, it's not just Spotify anymore or like iTunes, it then becomes YouTube and like so on and so forth. Well, where are you guys with that kind of process? Obviously you're early in the movement, but do you have any thoughts about that going forward?
Yeah. I mean, like we have been discussing our switch from the Cast Eye podcast into, Cast Eye Productions and what that means. And I think like our flagship, our main show is always going to be a podcast. It's always going to be like it is. But going forward, we do want to, start foraying into streaming. One, it's very attractive to me because I am the one who edits the podcast. And the idea of having a stream that I don't have to sit there for 8 hours afterwards and take out all the ums and the ahs and the dead air is incredibly enticing to me. But also, just like having more content, having more like different media to allow people to, because there are people who are like, I like streams. I don't listen to podcasts, or it's I want to see things live. I want to see things like. Yeah. So yeah, it's something we're very interested in doing.
Nice, dude. Can you, sort to that point of I have to spend 8 hours to edit stuff. give us an idea of because you guys are pretty much weekly at this point. So we've heard stories of the South Park week where they'll just they'll do 6 whatever 6 days or less. Yeah, 6 days or less. Well, they'll just it's pretty interesting and amazing how their process works. But give us an idea of your DM process week to week. So you just finished tonight's show just now. Give us like the next 6 days until you're back on again.
Okay, so generally, so we recorded last night. So then usually there's like an hour of hanging out after the game, after the record, of like drinking on Zoom and hanging out, or on Discord. And then, probably later today, I'll do some editing, and I have gotten a lot better at the editing. It doesn't take me nearly as long as it did at the beginning. And also because, like I said, there is a phrase in that I heard that is great and really speaks to me, which is, instead of saying we'll fix it in post, say we'll fix it in pre. So like when you're making a product that is like easier to edit, like it's so much easier on the back end. So I don't have to spend quite as much time on that anymore. And because the beauty of doing this show from a DM perspective is that, like, usually if you're running a regular sit at the table game, you're probably playing for like 3 or 4 hours. We play for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I am a stupidly optimistic DM as far as like how much we're going to get through, I'm always like, all right, so we'll probably, we're going into town. We'll get through town. We'll probably get through this encounter and this, and then okay, so let me just like let me prep up to that, and then then like we're still at the end of the episode, we're still like outside of town, like talking about shit, and I'm like, okay, great. So I have all this stuff prepped, but it's great because going back to the collaborative storytelling thing, is that like, so like I have like these things kind of like I have the skeleton of these things laid out, but then we fill in the flesh on this much of it, and then I can then go to that during the week and use that to like feed the next part. So it is all DMs. You just run an hour a week and record it and then listen back to it, and it makes for easy DMing.
Do you know what, dude? It's something that not only do I fall victim to, I fall on my own sword multiple times. I'm exactly like you, dude. I'm like, oh, yeah, so we're gonna get through that intro section where I introduce the 2 new characters in probably like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we're gonna get on the ship, and there's gonna be this, and there's gonna be that, and we'll get through. And then they'll meet this person, and we'll walk through that, and they'll get to the arena, and then they'll do that. But like you said, it always ends up being like we're halfway through, and I'm like, we're not even close to what. Like, why did I do all of this? Like, fuck's sake. But like you said, it then means that the next session, you're like, well, I have a lot less to prep, and in some cases, I don't have much to prep at all because it's still all prepped from last time, and I gave it the maximum go. So I'm exactly the same, dude. I over prepare every single freaking time, and it's the one thing that I talked about in our first D&D Diaries episode, is that I over prepared when I first started DMing, and that my notes were really extreme, and then I like reduced it a lot, and I've like grown back, and I'm like still trying to find that, but it's really weird how, dude, I don't know, that over preparation, finding that sweet spot is a hard one.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely. I mean? Absolutely. And I think it goes back to something we touched on earlier of being kind of scared to release control, you know, and like Tom, like you were saying, like, oh, I have this really like epic moment that we're going to get to. And like, it's so like, what I try and do is like, think about what is happening like outside of the characters, and just kind of like get that kind of set in my mind, or, you know, set down, and then let the characters then play in that quote unquote sandbox type thing, while still having like, so it's like, yeah, you guys don't have to do this, but things are happening, and they're going to happen regardless of what you do. So like, but I lost my train of thought there. But it is that like kind of, you know, taking a step back and being like, okay, I had a cool idea. I had a cool thing that was going to happen if you went in there, but you're not into it. You're not going in there. Okay. And then you take that cool thing and you put it in your pocket and you save it for later.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have sort of a built-in pipeline of story that you've prepped, and usually it sounds like you get up to a certain amount of it, and then you have some that carries over for the next session. Does that feel most comfortable? Like, we're always managing our performance anxiety and just preparation and all this other stuff. So does it feel, for you personally, is your style to have a bit in the pocket, a bit in your back pocket, just in case stuff goes in a way that you weren't expecting, and then you also are a little bit ahead for next week? Or do you feel like you're more of the, I'm going to fly by the edge of my seat and let's just see whose hair catches on fire first?
Yes and yes. It's like, so yeah, like I try and like map things out a little. I mean, not like map out the path, but like have, you know, so for instance, if they're like going into a town, I'm like, all right, here's what's in the town. You know, here are the people. Here are the stores. Here's a couple of like conflicts that could happen, you know, and I just like have these notes. And then depending on where they go and what they do, I kind of will build off that and then continue to build off of it next week. So that's where like having that hour-long session really comes into play. But to speak to that point, like early on, I feel like the second or third or fourth episode, there was a moment where like I teased this thing that like I thought I was like, this is some bait that could not possibly be passed up.
It's just jiggling there. It's just
I was like, oh, look at it. Yeah. We're absolutely going to go for this. We're like, I was thinking they were going to go like talk to more or less like the, you know, the kind of like criminal underground guy. But then they were like, nope, we want to go into the other half of the city and talk to the noble. And I was like, right on. Okay, great. I have not prepped any of that. Yeah. Like, so yeah. And that was kind of like a great learning moment for me, to, you know, not get like super detailed on one thing, because I feel like it's one of those things where like the more detail you put into something, the more likely the players are to like come up and like sniff it and then walk away. You know? that trap doesn't work. But yeah. So I kind of like try and have like a like the shotgun approach, you know, of like getting a lot of like little details around. So wherever they go, I have kind of a little roadmap.
Dude, that's I hope there's other young DMs or new DMs listening. You know, it's great advice. You know, it's exactly what I'm like. To me, like interestingly, do you know what's hilarious? I'm going to contradict you, and then I'm going to agree with you all in a moment. I literally, this session that we're about to run tomorrow, so we're about to run our first ever Dungeons and Dragons session in person, which is going to be awesome. And so we've like printed a bunch. We got a map, we got tokens, you know, we got all the shit for the players and stuff. And but this one is written quite narratively. I've made it quite strong in terms of narrative, in terms of getting them to a big first decision, basically, that will allow them to then unlock the sandbox element of our world, basically. And so it's something that I almost like I talked about on another one of our videos that we did about railroading, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this. But like I think in terms of I agree with you, dude. The beauty of D&D is found in that sandbox kind of where your players are making decisions and they're shocking you. And like you said, I like, you know, for example, the whole like, cool, you're in the city, where you go, I might have like a guard encounter, like you bump into a guard, he turns around and like, and that might be something that happens, you're like at the market, or it might be at the, you know, at the bar, or it might be, you know, as they're entering the city wall, or, you know, depending on when I'm kind of playing fit in, and giving them that sandbox element is what really makes D&D. And do you know what, the other thing that I would say then contradicting that is, there's times where, you know, and I'm sure you'll agree, that like that little push of like, hey guys, you're like, here's the breadcrumb, and I'm just going to leave that there and then kind of walk away. And I think, you know, there's times where using it is as a tool can be helpful. But I agree with you, dude. I think the beauty of Dungeons and Dragons is really in the sandbox. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned while writing this session, actually, and prior to this session, is that cool, sandbox is where the beauty is. And funnily enough, from this session onwards, the world that we have is a lot more sandbox and a lot more open to them. So I'm really excited, actually, for the session after this one. But that's not to say that they don't completely fuck up what I've got planned and end up doing what I was going to do in that next session anyway. So, you know, it could go completely haywire and yeah, you know, shit. You know how it is. Shit happens, and we'll see what goes down. And that's the thing is like I can't remember. Tom, you said you're like, we need 3 rounds of combat to do this kind of thing, and I was like, no. There needs to be a chance. They need to. Need to have the opportunity. There needs to be the way out. There needs to be a doorway that is the correct doorway.
The Hail Mary could actually be caught for the touchdown. It is a Hail Mary, but it is there in the game.
Yeah, exactly. It exists, and I think that's and dude, it's one of the things that I learned massively actually from listening to you guys. And guys, I'm not claiming to be a good DM. I talk like, you know, with the basic knowledge that I have, but it's one of the things I instantly learned listening to you guys was I could tell how open the world was and how much you were allowing the players to really drive it. And I think, yeah, dude, it contrasts, for example, someone else that I really love, Dimension 20, Brendon Lee Mulligan. He is a very narrative driven DM. It doesn't often feel like the characters are what I mean. That this is I don't want to insult him in any way, shape, or form, because I respect the guy with so much. I love him. But he does often like give them like the basic core of like, cool, this is what you're like, this is the path that we're on, like, and narratively this is where you're kind of going. You know, it's very hard for them to stray from that kind of thing. And Tom and I have the discussion often about whether the stuff that Brendon Lee Mulligan does, whether how much of that is improvised and how much of it is prep. We constantly have that question of like, it feels so prepped. Like it feels like he's just working them into, you know, like his next. I'd love to talk to him about it. Hey, Brendon, come on the show, dude. but you know,
or maybe not, because you might not want to answer that.
yeah, exactly. But I feel like your style and his style are so different in that he's narratively leading it, and you are narratively letting the players kind of drive and lead the momentum. And I think it was genuinely one of the biggest learning experiences. Was straight away in the first episode, I was like, wow, I learned so much from listening to the cast die in just that first episode. And yeah, dude, it's something that I appreciate, and I definitely will be implementing going forward, you know.
That's awesome. Thank you. And I think something that like that we are really lucky, that I am really lucky with on the show, is that like we like the players are in the same way that like I'm rooting for the players, they're rooting for me. You know, like there's moments where they're like, we're picking up on the fact that Mark has an idea, that Mark has a story, that there's a narrative here. So one thing that we talked about early on too was like, you know, because it is a show, because it is a performance, like of like finding the reason to say yes, you know, because like there's like the classic trope of like, you know, a new player is going to be like, yeah, I'm a dangerous loner, you know, and like, yeah, Wolverine's fucking awesome. Like everybody loves Wolverine, but you can't have a party of Wolverines. You know, it doesn't work. Like, you know, it's like, sure. Yeah. You are a you know, I work alone type guy. Absolutely fine. But then you have to find the reason that you're here, that you're a part of this group, that you're going to stay here. You know, it's like, and that was a discussion that we had early on of like, of that we have to do that because it's performance. And I mean, in any D&D game, you kind of have to do that. Like that you're not gonna have one character be like, no, I don't want to go stop the dragon. Sorry. No, I'm going to go home.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
And I want to role play that, please. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, unless that's the game you want to play, sure. Let somebody else take care of the dragon. We're going to go start a muffin shop. But so we had this thing of like, we have to find the reason why we're saying yes. We have to find the reason. And then we kind of brought that over into like taking those moments at the table where they're less interesting. So like, you know, planning and whatnot of like, we have a system where it's like, if two people say something, then let's go with it. Let's find the reason to say yes to that plan rather than like introducing a third plan, you know?
Dude, and do you know, it's almost like the whole improvisation, like no blocking, almost in a weird way. Do you know what I mean? You're there to you're not there to go, like someone goes, and your sister, how could you let her do that? And then they go, I don't have a sister. You know, you're like, well, now this makes no fucking sense. Like, well, what's happened here? You know, kind of thing. And so it's that whole like blocking thing. I wanted to ask you, dude, quickly, because I know Tom has a question he wants to ask you. I wanted to ask, how much, because you mentioned you were like, you know, you have to decide, you know, why you're here. How much are you implementing parts of the backstory for your players that link them into your plot, as opposed to going, cool, what's your, like, you link yourself to my plot? Do you know what I mean? Like, how much are you allowing the backstory freedom and the character development stuff there of your players, and how much are you puppeteering that stuff, or like giving suggestions or things from the side?
Well, I mean, that's kind of the beauty of having of collaborating on an original story, because like when we sat down and said we're going to do this, there wasn't a story at that point. You know, I didn't have to take these characters that the players made and insert them into a pre-existing story. We made these characters, and then like in talking with each individual player about their backstory, like, well, I mean, like I had the world created. That was my pandemic project, was creating the world. So like then each person was like, okay, you know, I'm going to be from Angvir, and I'm going to be a half vampire, and I'm going to be, you know, and so then, and I was in the army, and I was like, oh great. So, okay, cool. And then like I took that like tidbit, and I was like, all right, so yeah, the army in Angvir is like this. And then, you know, I'm a half elven ranger, and I'm from here. I'm like, okay, all right, cool. And then you like to have that opportunity to like to take all of that, and instead of like inserting, new characters in a pre-existing story, I made the story from the characters.
Dude,
So yeah,
it's a super awesome way to do it, and I can imagine it allowed you to develop your world in a much bigger and broader way.
Yeah, I could see
Yeah.
that as well. Like you might have sort of the main trunk of the tree, but they're giving you a lot of branches that you
absolutely.
can, and then and they may take a branch only to a certain level, and then that gives you the opportunity to build that branch out, and maybe to connect that branch with another one, and sort of, whether it comes back to the main trunk or not, but that could also just be a huge, 3 or 4 episode thing that you guys are all just enjoying.
Yeah, it's like the greatest DM lesson is like letting your players do the work.
Yeah. Dude, I wanted to ask, obviously, you also just said, I created the world. So by obviously, just for people who are listening, when you say create the world, what do you mean by that? Is that like you handed them a map and you were like, cool, these are locations that you can be from. Choose your location. What depth was the world that you had created before your players took control of where they were from and all that kind of stuff?
It was pretty in depth. I had, a lot of free time last year, and at first I was like, before we even decided we were going to do a podcast, like way before we decided we were going to do a podcast, I thought that, I was like, I've got all this time. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to create a new system. So I started like, oh man, I spent a lot of hours cherry picking like all the different things that I like from all the different systems. A lot of stuff from Pathfinder, a lot of stuff from older editions of D&D, a lot of stuff from Dungeon Crawl Classics, which is such an awesome system. So I was just like taking all this stuff and like I'm making my system that I love with all my favorite parts. And then I was like, man, there's a lot of systems out there. A lot of people have made systems. Maybe we don't need another one. But then I was like, you know what? There's not enough of is D&D podcast. So I should definitely make one of those. So I had like that system, and then like when I was making that system, I was like, you know what I should do? I should make the world to go along with this, and we'll have a setting too. So I had done like a pretty deep dive on the world of Thorum and like the Pantheon, and it was one of those things where like everything was kind of feeding each other. Like I wanted to do like a low magic setting, so I was like, all right, if there's not a lot of magic, what does that mean? Like, oh, it means the gods are not really involved with what's going on. So like, then I was like, all right, ooh, and why did the gods, they used to be involved, but now they're not. And there's not a lot of wizards. Why? Oh, because like all the wizards are in this one place and they don't let anyone else learn how to be a wizard. So then it, in kind of like having all these, like mechanical things that I wanted to have, then like figuring out narratively why it makes sense, allowed for the creation of a pretty in-depth world.
Nice, dude. No, and I can imagine your players appreciate that and we're able to study it as well and get some like, do you know what I mean? Like be able to get, because dude, like it comes down to this as well. Like when you are playing a character, the more information you have about that character. Now, whether that's because your director is giving you that information in a movie or you have gone away and developed the character yourself privately or whatever, that's when the best acting and the best understanding of a role comes from. Having worlds of knowledge. It's why, Ian McKellen can play Gandalf bloody perfectly, because there's literally books galore where he is described in like the most incredible minute detail of like his face all the way through to like his celestial being of being a song, so knowing Gandalf is, everything about him. It's hard to not know about him, and so I think, it's one of those things where you are most able to be your role when you have the most information to you. So I'm sure especially for, your, like you mentioned, some of your players were relatively new. I'm sure that really helped them as well, dude, having this like core base of knowledge that they can like pull from that isn't just rules. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Isn't like numbers and what dice I have to throw and what does this or that, you know, it's actually like, cool, I know that my city does this. Haha. Like, you know, it's a different tool set for players as opposed to being the rule lawyer who's like, I know that Tasha's hideous laughter does this. And, you know, kind of thing.
I know that this particular monster is vulnerable to.
Like, you're like, guess what? Not my one. Homebrewed, baby.
Not this one. Not that. What type of monster is this? This is a Gary. He's Gary. Gary is unique. But like that's something we talked about on the show. Like we got, you know, pretty like actory about it, and like. And it is like every actor should play D&D and role-playing games, absolutely. And anybody who plays it is an actor. You know, you're playing a role. Like that's right there in the name. It's not hidden. But like we were talking about the fact that like there is no other medium where an actor can have such control of a character and developing a character and taking a character from, you know, level 0 or or like from the backstory that you create through like wherever. Like there is no other opportunity for an actor to like dive into a role like that. You know, like in a movie, you're probably playing a character that it was written, and like you're playing it for 2 hours, you know, like in a play or like in a TV show, like that goes on for years, you're still playing like a written character. But like in D&D, man, like you have like, what a fucking awesome gift for an actor to be like, this is a character that's 1000% yours. And like, even better than that, you get to have like, because if you look at it like that from like the writing perspective of like, when you're writing, you have complete control over your characters, but like you have like, because you have so much control, it's like, you know, it almost becomes you like debases the currency, I guess. But like when you have that balance of like having complete control over your character, but in a world where things happen, like it's I love it so much. It's so cool. Like that opportunity to do it is so dope.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And to add on that, when you learn something about your character and then apply it retroactively to their life, because it's something that your character hadn't learned about themselves yet. You know what I mean? Like it can be a piece of your backstory of like, you know, you thought your mom was a hero, but really she was a bastard, you know, skeleton, you know, kind of thing. Or it can be an emotional thing, like you could like, you know, whether it be an oath-breaking paladin or, you know, like that kind of thing. And retroactively apply that, you're like, holy shit, my character was never okay with this level of, you know, bullshit justice. Actually, I've always hated this. I'm an oath breaker from the start. I didn't even know, you know, kind of thing. And you can retroactively apply that to your character's life and the thought process and how you play them. And there's, like you said, there's no other thing on this planet that allows actors to do that and to continue. And further than that, you go, some of these campaigns last for years and years and hundreds of sessions, you know, I mean, sorry to wear a Critical Role again, but, you know, they've had 2 campaigns that have gone, what, 500 maybe episodes each campaign? You're like, to combined 500 episodes, you're like, that's as long as an anime. We're talking Naruto, bro. Like, that's insane. Like, that's a ridiculous amount of, and
with the
amount of hours that they do, like,
Yeah.
This is like these people are not committing to a role. They're committing to a life, an entity. It's like, it's not playing a game. It's not being a role. You are committing to, it's like a Tamagotchi in a weird, you know, you're keeping this thing alive and you're like, I'm keeping you alive and I'm making decisions for you and I'm trying to do you the justice off of what your story is. And like, yeah, dude, I don't know. It's to say that like you said, dude, everyone can learn something from Dungeons and Dragons. And furthermore, anyone who is acting, irregardless of your platform, whether it's YouTube, shorts, theater, improv, sketch comedy, you know, movies, the silver screen TV, you know, whatever it is, you can learn. you can gain skills that will enhance you in a way that nothing else actually will, in a weird
Absolutely.
and it's weird that it works like that, but that is the truth of it.
I think, just because from my position, I'm kind of like trying to summarize, take things out of what we've been talking about. And it seems like, as a general rule, and this is sort of as an actor as well, to take that choice that is the most open, the most available to the most experienced, right? So you look at some actors' choices, like Sir Ian McKellen. He played Gandalf, and at sometimes Gandalf, you looked at him and he was, up, and you could tell his presence in his sort of gravitas. And other times he had that little twinkle in his eye, that little smile on the side of his face. That the well-roundedness of the experience of Gandalf is what you want in an actor, and so that's also what you want in a DM and a player, right? You want the DM to always choose for open. You want the player to always choose for, audacious, bold and audacious and open and creative, as opposed to sort of, the linear track. So I think that's an interesting takeaway that I've had. And another one, let's give credit where credit is due, because you've talked, Mark, about the process that you guys are going through just to improve on the audio type performance, and just in 20 episodes, how much that improvement has had. This aspect of streaming is a different animal. Like, and you talk about, when you just look at podcasting, and this is, I think, maybe our 40-ish podcast. You hear, Joe Rogan will say, "I didn't know what the hell I was doing for the first, I don't know, don't go ahead and listen to them. They were shit. Like, it was crap." And you start learning the mechanics of what makes a performance, most enjoyable to consume. And I guess we're all sort of on that journey. But dude, the guys that are killing it on streaming, to do 500 episodes, 3-hour live sessions, and keep everyone engaged or as engaged as possible, there's a certain craftsmanship
absolutely
to that is well respected. I think there's a lot to learn there. 100%. I think there's very few people on this planet. There's a reason why Critical Role are who they are, why Matt Mercer is who he is, why Brendon Lee Mulligan is who he is, why Chris Perkins is why these dungeon masters who exist in the world are revered for being absolute like Goliaths in what we do, is because every average dude in their basement can be an incredible DM, but not every average dude in their basement can be an incredible streaming performance. Not every single one of us can do that. And that's where it really comes in. And the reason why I say this, you guys are and will be up there with the greats, because your guys' show has the quality, it has the writing, it has also the power behind you guys, in terms of, like we've talked about, the passion, the wanting to be there, the wanting to learn your world and like do work outside of this, so that when you do come to the table or to the Zoom call, it's as incredible as it can feasibly be. Like, you guys have all of that, and then on top of that, you've got accents and really good combat, a combat system that is way incredible that you've developed, and all the other stuff that you've worked on. There's no way in hell that the Cast Die within the next, I would say, 3 years is up there and raking in what those guys are. Like, I definitely am putting my money on. I think 5 years is a stretch. I think you guys will be there in 3 years, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
That's pretty incredible, man. I hope so. that would be pretty great.
You guys deserve it, man. You put in the work, and that's what, and that's the other thing, is you can feel it. Like, it's one of those things that you really can feel, as opposed to, like you said, when you meet someone, and you knew with Dwayne and those guys that it was like, you could feel it. Like, dude, I've listened to a lot of D&D podcasts where, like you said, you're sat there and you're just like, oh my God, when will we get to something that means anything in this plot whatsoever, and you guys are so meaty, and it's so like high paced, and so like, and by high paced, I don't mean that you guys don't spend time on your role play and have engaging conversation. I mean, it's high pace as in, I'm constantly on the edge of my seat, like, oh shit, like this is, it's constantly interesting, and that's why I think it is where the gold dust happens. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So, dude, we're all in front of a camera right now, but there's a lot
Yeah.
of stuff going on behind the camera as far as the hustle, the grind.
Right. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what your approach is with the grind. And there's the social media aspect of it, and there's other things. What is, without revealing the secret sauce, let's say, of what your strategy is to continue to grow. What things are really
growing your audience?
Yeah, how are you growing your audience as a pretty new podcast? And it is growing, it seems like.
What advice can you give to other new podcasters, I guess, maybe?
Well, I mean, like, as far as secret sauce goes, if I knew it, I would give it away. But like, I think, one thing like that that kind of like coalesced for me a few years ago. I was at a job, and this editor, I was doing a commercial gig for like Allegra or something, and the editor had this like neon sign that said "Work hard and be nice," and I was like, man, that's it. Like, that's the advice. That's the thing. Like, yeah, don't be an asshole. Like, and I said before, like my second favorite piece of acting advice, my first favorite is Spencer Tracy said, learn your lines and hit your mark, but that's like, that kind of like really succinct, like seemingly almost like trite, simple thing is like, yeah, dude, like, if you are being genuine, if you are being real, that I think that always comes through. And like, I think that's like, when I talked to you guys the first time, I was like, man, these guys are fucking awesome. Cause I think like that is, that's you guys. And like, cause I don't know how to, I don't have a marketing degree. I don't have like I don't know how to do this. I'm just out there like being nice and like trying to, I'm working hard and I'm being nice. And I think like, I think people can see that. And like, I think, well, one, also, you if you can, everyone should definitely be lucky. Like, you want to definitely be lucky. That is a huge, the best advice I can give is be really lucky.
Just bottle some lightning, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You know how it is, dude, though. Only halflings have that luck,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Little D&D joke for you there.
Yeah.
Little race trait there.
Exactly. But yeah. I mean, like, yeah. If it's something you're passionate about and you're willing to put in the time, and hopefully good things will come from it. But like, yeah, lucky is definitely the most important thing.
Dude, you know what as well? Like, I think, again, in terms of being nice, dude, you exude that in both your presence on social media, of how you converse with our community, like something that I like. We're maybe 4 or 5 months into the Dungeons and Dragons community, as it were, as opposed to the podcast and MMA communities that we've been now a part of for like a year. And, we're relatively established and, in some degree, and with the D&D world, though, it's so much like love and interaction, and the way that you really get in there with people really does make it, it's what leads the charge. It's what leads the example. And a lot of the big people within the community, I think, feel that pressure, and I'm not sure whether you're feeling that pressure, but I think a lot of them do, outside of the ones that are doing it naturally and being nice, and thus follow the example of people like yourself and whatnot. But dude, like, I mean, to come down to it, I mean, you wouldn't have been on the podcast if I hadn't have commented on something that you posted, and you come and message me and go, hey, I need to work with you. I don't know how, but we need to work together at some point. And without that, dude, we're not here. We're not writing together. We're not being friends and being buddies. And like, so dude, you are the one who's taking that step. And we, as the community around you, appreciate you and your entity within the social media and with what you're doing outside that. So the work hard and be nice is not something that people don't see. I could have guessed.
Write that down.
I could have guessed that was your, like, if that was like, if you're like, guess my motto, I probably would have put that somewhere in my top 3 guesses for like you, dude. Like, it really comes across. So you're living up to that, dude, and we appreciate you massively, man.
Thanks, man. And yeah, the feeling's mutual.
And so yeah, we'll start wrapping this up because it feels like a natural point to do so. But I wanted to give you a chance to like I said at the beginning, shout some stuff out, any stuff you're working on, any adverts that are coming out with your voice on it, any cast die, any D&D supplements, anything like that, dude. Where can people find you?
D&D supplements? You mean like to take?
I like
to hit the gym with the
because your dice rolling hand is like jacked. You're like,
It's important to keep to take like a vitamin E supplement, you know, to keep the ligaments nice and juicy for your dice rolling hand.
Sponsored by
yes.
Nutrition.
Yeah. Our GNC is going to be our first sponsor. I mean, well, yeah, we had the Cast Eye podcast, obviously, like that's our main thing, at Cast Eye podcast on all the social medias and everything, and wherever podcasts are found. We are, like I said, kind of like in an expansion phase, and we're looking for people to collaborate with, like you guys, which we're that is a collaboration we are very excited about, and if you're over here in the U.S., keep your ears open for some Amtrak spots coming out soon.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Maybe to be posted on the Cast Eye B channel.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't we do a take like this? I love this copy, guys. Why don't we do a take where I say something about Dungeons and Dragons? Like, what do you think? Escape to Dungeons and Dragons. Like something like that.
Dude,
I don't think it made it. I don't think it made it.
I would love if on your website as well, you guys just included what voiceover stuff you guys do, so that people, when like, for example, because I know you mentioned like the Mountain Dew advert, like I now every single time, dude, I'm like, is that Mark? I think it's Mark. I think it's Mark. I'm like, I think it's Mark.
Yeah.
You should put that on the on your bloody website. That would be hilarious.
Yeah.
That would be incredible.
Yeah.
But dude, anything else? Any other bits and bobs?
I mean the Cast Eye podcast is pretty much what we got going at this point.
That's enough, right?
Yeah.
For sure. And dude, again, anyone who has a chance, please go check out what they do. If you have a spare minute after listening to hours of their podcast, if you can spare 1 minute to head over to Homie and the Dude, hit us with the Holy Trinity. Just follow on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, and share any one of our podcasts or videos on your social media. That's the best way to help us out, guys. Otherwise, Mark, thank you so freaking much for coming and talking to us, giving us a piece of your mind, a piece of your heart, and furthermore, look forward to bringing the world some amazing work with you, dude. You're truly a gift to the Dungeons and Dragons community and world, my brother. Thank you.
Thank you guys, Bodhi, Tom. Thank you guys so much for having me, man. Like, this was really, truly a pleasure.
Nice, man.
Honestly,
thanks, Mark.
Really appreciate it. All right.
See you soon.
We're chugging through. We're loving doing this stuff for you guys. If you want to support us, if you want to make sure that we can keep getting, better quality set, better quality lights, make the filming better.
Bigger batteries for the camera.
Bigger batteries for the camera.
Yes.
All that kind of stuff. You can do that by just liking, following the page, and subscribing to the YouTube channel. That is what really makes a difference to us.